Well, my name's Carlotta Holt and I'm museum head gardener, and I've been at the museum just coming up to 18 years. It came to me a little bit later in life actually, so I actually initially started off working in dentistry, but I was always interested in gardening, had a passion for growing, particularly vegetables and herbs, that sort of thing. And it's just by chance that this opportunity came along after I'd taken up gardening for myself, doing self-employed gardening, and this opportunity came along. And then when I came along and met Bob Holman, who was my predecessor, you could see his passion and enthusiasm for what he was doing, and he created the gardens here, and that just drew me in really. We have 6 historic gardens here, so we're looking at really growing things that were from late medieval through to late Victorian. And as near as we can, we're growing the varieties that suit the period of the house, but also importantly the social status of the householder. There are some compromises along the way, so there are, for example, in Bayleaf Garden we'll have grass paths, which they wouldn't have had, they would have just had mud paths. But we have obviously thousands of visitors who are accessing the gardens, so there are some compromises. Some of the varieties, as near as we can, we're growing the ones that suit the period. But as an example, leeks, we can only source 19th century leeks, but we still grow them in Bayleaf Garden, which is set in late medieval period, because leeks were so important, just that they may not have looked quite as big and bold. So there are compromises along the way, but as near as we can, that's what we're doing. You'll see we've got hazel here actually, and around some of the gardens we use hazel to create the hurdle fencing, which we did around Bayleaf this winter. So using sustainable material. And in Bayleaf Garden we have what we call living mulch. And that is where we have plants that have self-seeded between the sown crops. And that helps to harbour beneficial predators. It helps to keep nutrients from leaching out when you have heavy rain. So we had a hailstorm yesterday and it just protects the soil. So that sort of medieval way of gardening is something that's also relevant today. So those plants growing between the sown crops will harbour beneficial predators, and also it will help stop evaporation when we have periods of drought, of course, which we've been having recently. So it's important to attract predators in your garden to deal with the pests. And to do that, you really need to have a diverse range of plants growing in the garden. So things like nettles will bring in predators. We've got, at the moment, we were looking at the feverfew, which actually the black fly like, but hopefully they'll go to that as opposed to the runner beans. And different, we've got campion, which is known as sticky catch fly, so they are attracted to that. But also we've noticed this week we've got ladybird larvae about, and they absolutely love ferocious eaters of aphids. So anything you can do to bring in the beneficial predators to deal with the pests. At the moment there's lots of what we think of as weeds, but they are pot herbs. So sow thistle and chickweed and fat hen and young nettles, really, really important at this time of year because it's what we call a hungry gap. And we'll have demonstrations and courses as well, use the gardens as resource. It's very much about not just the period of the house and when the garden is set, but the social status. So that's what we can show, that transitions of gardens through the centuries. So when you're looking at, say, Poplar Garden, which is set in the mid-17th century of a husbandman, so a fairly low status dwelling, then it's very much functional utilitarian. And then as we move towards a Walderson Garden, which is set in a similar period, but that's a yeoman farmer, we're just showing the very beginnings of aesthetic gardens for people of that social status. So it's the period and the social status that dictate what we might grow. It brings it to life, really. It tells the story of how people lived. But importantly, also for today, that link to today, sustainability, biodiversity, are key things that are talked about. But really important, where does your food come from? how can we manage in periods of drought, which we're going through at the moment. So I think that's what I like about it. It's not just about history, it's about making it relevant to today. And I think also for people's enjoyment. I think people enjoy exploring the gardens and seeing the different varieties that we grow. I mean, this morning I've been in Whitaker's garden just putting in some supports for the damask roses, and they're just flowering now, and visitors were really taking in the scent. So that was lovely. But also at the moment we've got Sweet Sicily, which is a lovely aniseed flavour, and it was used for sweetening tart fruit prior to sugar, or if sugar was very expensive, so may not be available to all. At the moment, Sweet Rocket, probably, Dame's Violet, which is prolific around all the gardens. And that was actually something that was, the young leaves of Sweet Rocket were eaten and the flowers are edible. It has a lovely scent, especially in the evening. It was taken on voyages to help prevent scurvy because it has a lot of vitamin C in it. But it's very much a cottage garden plant now, but it's nice to be able to tell the story of how they came about. So the Sweet Sicily I was talking about, I think it's, from memory, I think it's John Gerard, who's a herbalist of the 16th century, who refers to it being a herb for people who are dull. So maybe that brightens them up a bit, which I can see because it's a lovely scent and a lovely flavour. We're just coming up to the season where we will have our apothecary roses flowering in Weald, and they are absolutely delightful. So certainly at this time of year, I probably would select Weald, but it depends on the time of year as to which one. There's no particular favourite.
Well, Carlotta, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Really good chat.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice to chat to you. Thank you.